Ahoy folks, Craig signing in for Pure Xbox to bring you our review of Capcom's Street Fighter 6. This review was originally written by resident Punchman PJ O'Reilly and turned into video by me. So, let's just dive right into this one. Have a quick browse through a few online rankings of the best Street Fighter games and you'll find that Street Fighter 5, yep, the only one that's never made it to Xbox consoles, usually lingers somewhere behind Street Fighter 4 in the minds of many a fan of the franchise. Whilst it was still a top-notch effort when it actually came to the fisticuffs, it launched in a pretty sorry state overall. With barely anything in the way of single-player diversions, a roughshod multiplayer experience, and a roster of pugilists that has taken far too long to grow into what it's since become. For all the improvements that 5 made with regards to the series' core combat, and we actually reckon it's a better fighter mechanically than 4, it's a game that, in the long run, left a bit of a bad taste in the mouth, and one that's had the series sat in this strange funk ever since. For us folk who just wanted a flashy new Street Fighter experience to dig into, it left us wondering what this most storied of franchises was going to do in order to course correct. Booting up Street Fighter 6, it's immediately clear that Capcom has actually been more than aware of the disquiet and has made some meaningful moves to address it. This is a big and brash new entry that loudly responds to complaints over a lack of content, launching with 3 very meaty modes for players of all abilities to get blasted into and enjoy. As long-term fans of this series, fans who have played every entry since the first launched way back in the late 80s, this latest effort feels like a huge treat and a definitive return to happier times in almost every single way. Let's kick things off with the game's World Tour mode, a single-player offering that turns Street Fighter into a ridiculous Yakuza-styled RPG. Here you get to build a fighter in the game's impressively flexible character creation suite, give them a suitably silly name, and then take to the streets of a wonderfully madcap Metro City to rise up the rankings, whilst also getting to the bottom of a very cheesy mystery involving the Mad Gear Gang and some other shady bad guys that we're not gonna mention. That's for you to find out. Right off the bat, this isn't an open world effort that's gonna give the likes of The Witcher or Yakuza any sleepless nights. It's thoroughly old-fashioned, fairly basic, segmented into small areas, and a clunky experience in many ways. However, it compensates for all of these failings through the sheer absurdity of its world and characters. This is not something to be taken remotely seriously, and it's packed to the rafters full of little nods and winks to the wider history of Capcom's fighting game stable. Blasting around Metro City, you'll bump into all manner of punks you'll recognize from the likes of Final Fight, slap the life out of them for XP and rewards, and then jump into various skill trees to make yourself a little stronger. NPCs stroll around the town with TVs and cardboard boxes on their heads. Everyone in Metro City is either fighting or limbering up for that fight, and smashing each other with a knee to the head is just how folks say hello around here. As you progress through World Tour, you'll slowly begin to discover and befriend Street Fighter legends, who can then become your teacher, giving your avatar the opportunity to adopt their fighting style and learn their signature special moves. This is where, initially World Tour being a throwaway mode, really starts to get interesting, allowing you to mix and match styles and movesets to build a fighter that suits your style. It's impressively flexible stuff, giving you the chance to mix spinning bird kicks and Hadoukens, and it's all backed up by a seamlessly endless supply of wild gear, masks, hats, outfits, and all manner of accessories that really let you go to town with customization, as well as providing boons and boosts to boot. And if you're beginning to wonder if World Tour is all about running around and slapping things as a temporary diversion from the proper game, it reveals itself to be quite a bit more. You get your first amateur scrap at Mike Haggar Stadium. Things start to feel a little bit more serious, and the tour fights are even given real-time commentary from some famous FCG announcers. This adds a real sense of occasion, tension, and fun to your competitive encounters. The whole thing also doubles as a very clever tutorial and in-depth means of onboarding new players. Stick with World Tour, rise through the ranks here, and you will absolutely learn the sticks you'll need to successfully jump into the traditional arcade and multiplayer suite of modes. It's really great stuff and a brilliant way to give solo new players plenty to do whilst actually teaching them the basics they'll need to stick with the game. This accommodation of newcomers seeps into the other areas of experience through a retooled tutorial mode that teaches you all of the moves and combos you'll need, as well as detailing each fighter's style and how you should approach using them. This then sits alongside a new modern control option that streamlines things to a 4-button setup with light, medium, heavy, and special attack. Modern controls do still take a little getting used to, but inexperienced players should find themselves pulling off sweet combos and flashy finishes fairly quickly this way, giving them a foothold in the action before they perhaps graduate to the more flexible classic control setup. All of this makes for a Street Fighter that you can heartily recommend to friends who have never touched this sort of fighting game before, which is excellent news for people like myself. I'm terrible at these games. In terms of the game's traditional arcade mode, Street Fighter 6 gives you a robust roster of 18 pugilists to get to grips with from the off, each with a usual throwaway story told in anime cutscenes at the beginning and end of the run. There are some notable omissions in the lineup, with no Bison or Sagat hurting us the most, but this is still a very impressive starting point overall. It's a solid mixture of stone cold classics: Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Honda, Blanca, Guile, and the like, with Cammy, DJ, and Yuri also returning to the mix. However, it's actually been the newbies we've been most impressed with so far. Jamie, the breakdancing drunken master, feels like he's taken some cues from Tekken's Lei Wu Long, one of our all-time favorites. Manon is a flexible tour de force with a massively damaging array of kicks, whilst Lily, Kimberly, and JP feel like they're sort of tricksy fighters that will have players stuck in training mode for a long time. Oh, and let's not forget Marisa, who in our early dealings feels like a strong stand-in for Balrog's explosive boxing style of play. It's an interesting mix with more than enough to keep fans busy until the DLC characters inevitably start to drop, and most importantly, it never feels stingy. There's a whole lot to get involved with here, puns to learn, and plenty to master. It helps too that the whole thing looks and sounds so damn good. We know some folk have been wary of the new character designs in the build-up to release, but in motion, when you've got your hands on it, the fighters and stages are hugely impressive, dripping in small details and reactive expressions. This is easily one of the very best looking fighters we've ever clapped our eyes on. It revels in bright colors, screen-shaking attacks, and pumping beats, from the outfits to the locations and those great big blasts of paint splatter that accompany the all-new Drive Impact moves. It's the kind of thing that's very hard to put down once you're in the zone. With regards to those Drive Impacts, they're all part of Street Fighter 6's retooled and refined core mechanics, giving you a drive gauge at the top of the screen that builds and recovers as you fight, allowing you access to fancy overdrive versions of special moves alongside easy-to-master reversals, blocks, and parries that feel hugely satisfying and coherent to pull off. You don't need to sweat learning this stuff in Street Fighter 6. It feels fluid, logical, and natural, easy to pick up and run with. Mix this drive gauge system with returning super arts and the already wide variety of base moves available to each and every fighter, and you've got one of the most pure fun, engaging, and spectacular efforts we've played in a long time. There's tons for the competitive crowd to master here, but Capcom has remembered us casuals this time around. The Battle Hub makes up the final portion of the trio of modes on offer, and once again, you can see the effort that's very obviously been made to both welcome newcomers and give solo street fighting fans plenty to keep them busy this time around. We've also had a handful of scraps online so far, each of which ran flawlessly. but it'll naturally take time to see just how the meta pans out in online battles. What's immediately impressive though is how the multiplayer aspects have been placed into a great big welcoming hub that gives you more to do. Feels like more of a proper hangout space. You can spectate and learn from other fighters, pull up to an arcade cabinet for a blast of full versions of Final Fight, Street Fighter 2, and Super Puzzle Fighter, or hit up some shops to spend your zenny. Multiplayer is one part of Street Fighter 6 we know the least about so far, as we had limited access during our review period, but it's already in a much more intriguing place than its predecessor was at launch. Is it all good news for Street Fighter fans then? Well, no, there are some issues here and there. Arcade mode is locked at 60 FPS, and online battles ran super smooth for us at times, but in World Tour mode, there's currently some noticeable frame rate issues that need addressing on Series X, with fights involving multiple NPCs stuttering quite heavily at times. We've also been playing on a build that yet to have a high-resolution texture pack, a pack which launches on day one, and should, we hope, take care of all the low-res billboards, textures, and clothing that are so rife in this version of Metro City. However, away from these minor gripes, we really couldn't be happier with what Capcom has delivered. We'd reached a sort of bad place with Street Fighter personally, and it felt like it had drifted away from us. More concerned with competitive pro tournaments, endless DLC packs, and live service shenanigans. Street Fighter 6 feels like a return of an old friend. The magic is back. The fun has once again taken center stage. Street Fighter 6 feels like a direct and hugely effective response to criticisms over the anemic state of its predecessor at launch. Capcom has fully loaded 3 huge modes here, giving wannabe world warriors a veritable feast of fisticuffs to engage with. World Tour is a great big cheese fest that revels in its madcap style whilst providing a fun story with engaging RPG elements and a great way to learn the ropes all rolled into one. Arcade mode offers up a solid roster of 18 excellent fighters to choose from at launch, and the all-new Battle Hub already looks and feels as though it's going to be a great place to hang out and challenge other players once multiplayer kicks off properly. It's been a minute since we've had a new Street Fighter on Xbox, and this one's been more than worth the wait. Will you be picking up Street Fighter 6 when it arrives on Xbox as well as other consoles and PC on Friday the 2nd of June? Be sure to like the video and subscribe for all things Xbox, as well as going to purexbox.com for all the latest Xbox news, reviews, and previews. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I've been Craig. Cheerio.